deal with practice later, I think. 'Cause
Okay.
There's practice. Do you want to work a job? Okay.
I really
What
should work a
job do you
job.
want to work?
I want to work, and I want to use my extensive knowledge of history to answer history questions.
How does that work as getting you money?
They don't pay me for answering hard questions about ancient history?
Or
Are there no scholars in this land and nobody care?
probably.
Yeah.
See, what I'm wondering is, how do you resolve getting a job with the fiction? Does it have to occur in downtime?
I think.
Okay, here is what Get a Job says. I'm going to read it. It's a whole paragraph, so hopefully I don't cut out. Establish what job/occupation the character is undertaking. Pick a skill to represent this. Test the skill. Appropriate forks are allowed. The obstacle is 1 plus the number of dice lost. Meeting this obstacle recovers 1 die. Margin of success replenishes an additional die per success. The time for the test is equal to the current resources cycle.
Oh, wow.
Time for the test can be reduced by 10% per extra success spent on working quickly and not on reducing tax. The test counts towards the advancement of the job skill.
Okay.
If it takes the same amount of time as a resource cycle, which is for us 6 months,
Yep.
then
There's
we
not
can't get a
time.
job until after we talk. At least until after we talk to the people
Right.
at the organization.
Maybe the organization will have a job for me.
They'll probably pay in cash, like in-game jobs, pay in cash. I believe.
I mean,
Not
maybe
still help
we can
them.
take
So
some downtime and
do-
I can do some history research for them.
We'll see. We'll see what happens.
So,
But if we have 3 weeks of downtime,
I guess there's 2 things there. Does the party want to spend 6 months for someone to recover money?
No.
Additionally, what kind of job would that actually entail?
well, I think that we are not waiting around. I thought we were leaving and going straight to the organization and meeting them. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Well, the thing also though is that like in game, we're all about like a month off from the actual resources cycle, so there's going to be some form of downtime or catch up.
For when
Zen
this
takes
comes
over.
into effect.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true. Doesn't it take us like 3 weeks to travel there? I thought by boat, travel to the boat.
I'll get into that a little bit when we get into what's going to happen next.
Okay, so we'll do downtime when you pick things up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, then I think we are done.
Because remember when we were talking about this game, you were like, well, you only play for like a few weeks or a few months out of the entire year. There's going to be a lot of downtime. So I hope there's eventually downtime where I can get a job.
I think we'll have it. But yeah, I think we'll have it. Most of our downtime, though, it'll be difficult to get a job because most of it will probably be us on a boat waiting while we travel places.
Well, I mean, if we want to talk about it, we can. There are ways that I'm thinking of right now that we can build in 6 months of downtime.
Yeah,
that's a thing.
That's a thing. If that is a thing, many of us probably will have had birthdays and grown older. Which is interesting because I don't think that's ever happened to any of my characters in RPGs. They either die or, well,
There's still time for that.
live long enough for the campaign to end.
I need to get my Pendragon on, guys. I need some hairs.
Do you already have a kid?
Guys.
We
You
don't
have a
know
kid
if the
waiting
kid
to become
survived.
Lord
I
Edwin?
have a half-dwarf bastard.
Oh, right. Cool.
All right, well, we've got 2 weeks to hash that out since we don't have a
Yes.
session. next
Heads up, by
week,
the way.
so-
No
All
session next week. It's
So I guess
Canadian
we can-
Thanksgiving, and I'm Canadian.
I guess we can figure it out, and then when we come back, Zen can take care of any life cycle stuff for that. I have one last thing, I guess. and that is reputations. I'm on page 384 here. At the end of a scenario, players and GM may nominate characters for new reputations. This process is exactly the same as nominating and voting for a new trait for a character. Players nominate the character based on how they think he was played, how the controlling player's role-playing came across at the table.
Okay.
So, I know, as the GM, everyone here, that's Nico, Ernest, and Lord Edwayne, is getting a hostile reputation with Bryansk.
How do you spell Bryansk again?
Bryansk.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what that means is that anyone involved in that circle or that area will give you a +1 ob.
To just everything. Literally everything.
Pretty much.
Want to climb a tree in Bryansk? Yeah, the tree doesn't like you.
Well, no, like social stuff.
I know.
The tree still may not like you.
Does that include the animals of Bryansk? Like, is the dog going to bite me?
Probably.
Well, only the trained dogs.
Yeah, they've trained every animal in the country to friggin' hate you.
From the big dragon to the tiny lizards and cockroaches.
Yeah. I mean, I know our scenario was fairly limiting, social-wise, but did anyone else think a character might have changed a reputation?
Changed reputation?
Changed or gained?
Changed or gained.
I think Nico possibly gained a reputation with the organization.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll
He's
say
like proving himself.
This is kind of weird, but I'll say that's contingent on like the reputation was gained when the artifact finally arrived, right?
Yeah,
which we haven't fully done, but that's sort of like in my mind when Nico gets that +1 rep.
I think we should add it now as a
or is that would you guys say that's rep or an affiliation though?
Ooh. I believe I'm just checking. Is affiliation
affiliation is different.
Like publicly known? Affiliation is specifically
affiliation is different. This would be a rep. Yeah.
That's not what this is. I would say that even if we don't get the artifact, he would get reputation because of that guy that's there. He will tell the story of what happened here to the organization. So it's
for Carol? Okay.
It's Carol.
Yeah, well, okay. It sounds like we all are saying yes, so for votes, right? Okay. Nico could have a +1 rep towards the organization.
Yep.
I think that Ernest may have a reputation of cold-blooded amongst the people near Pascal, because I did, combined with killing this dude right at the end of the last session, right in front of everyone, without batting an eye. In addition, and those were just civilians of the place. And then earlier, 3 months ago, the same person cutting off a dude's leg. I did bury them afterwards, but still. I sort of think I might have gained a reputation of this weird guy who wears plate armor all the time. A very small local one, but I'm sure that locals are beginning to talk about what's going on since they are actually surviving now.
Ernest, the slayer of peasants.
Ernest, the murderer.
I'm fine with that. If you want such a reputation, they will fear you.
What are the levels of reputation? Does it go up to 3?
I think it's 3. There's like local and minor and major.
Yeah. 3. Okay, so reputation, here we go. Like everybody in the world knows it.
Basically, you're like Zeus or something.
I'm just trying to get some insight as to how this character sheet is set up, because there's only 3 lines for it, so you should probably have like 1 for plus, 1 for 1, 1 for 2, and 1 for 3. And just put them on
so you're probably fairly Like
here in the new reputations is like sort of like the degrees for dice they have. The breadth of the reputations is dependent on the events that spawned it. A massive battle which saves the crown, 3 dice. A brilliant day at court, 2 dice. Settle a dispute between 2 feuding families, 1 dice.
okay, even that seems too big for what Ernest has done. So never mind.
It doesn't have the scope of the families. It could be 2 peasant families.
That's true, but I've done even less than that.
Do you think so?
I've killed like 2 people that are nearby, and
Okay.
like 2 peasant selling a dispute between 2 peasant families will at least have the entirety of both of those peasant families talking about me. Which is way more than I've done here,
Okay.
I think. So I don't think I have yet earned any reputation regarding my actions.
Okay.
I don't think Edwin's done anything that would be talked about in a positive way.
I think that is all the sort of end of scenario burning wheel stuff.
Yes.
Did we want to take a secondary break? Or I don't even know how long we've been running. Or did we just want to go straight into other things?
Wrap up session. What's next? Thoughts on the system?
Thoughts on the system. I'm okay with just going straight into it, honestly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Let me close out of it.
So I know on Skype we've been talking a little bit about some of our thoughts with things in Burning Wheel, but I don't think we've ever voiced a lot of them sort of live, so to speak. Right. So,
yeah.
And some of us, I've been posting a lot on the Reddit. Seth, I think you've been posting on the Reddit.
Yeah. I've been asking questions on Reddit a few times and stuff, so yeah. Overall, I've been enjoying Burning Wheel. I think it's pretty interesting. As far as the GM stuff, there are some issues I have, but I'd be more interested in hearing about some of the player side stuff first.
Okay.
As far as it goes for me, I mean, I have played, I think about 12 systems in the past 2 years or so. And this is the only one that's resonated with a completeness about it. Like there is nothing that I've tried to do that I've been like, well, the game doesn't let me.
Yeah.
You know?
That's true.
So in that aspect, I absolutely love this game. That being said, there are nuances that bug me, but that might just be the fact that I'm new to the system and I'm muddling through.
Mm-hmm. I definitely have that vibe with a number of things of like, there are certain things I still just don't grok yet.
Yeah.
And yeah.
But I will say that amongst the RPG community, this game has a reputation of being, oh my god, we should be in awe and fear of this game. And I think that totally works against people playing it, because you go into it with the mindset of, it's going to be difficult. And if you didn't have that preconception, I don't think it would be as difficult.
Right.
I agree.
It's actually, like the base mechanics for Burning Wheel are actually pretty simple.
They're simpler than most other RPGs.
Yeah.
Like, it's simpler than 5e.
And it's more consistent than a lot of other systems.
Yeah.
It's identical for everything, until you start getting into some of the subsystems, which we've barely touched.
Yeah.
But
we've done what's in the fight, and it wasn't that.
We haven't done a fight yet.
Sorry, Duel of Wits, and what's it called? Just Duel or
Bloody Versus?
Bloody Versus.
There's
we did do a Bloody Versus.
And there's range and cover.
Bloody Versus was super simple.
It's supposed to be. It's not actually.
Duel of Wits. Yeah. Duel of Wits was a bit more complicated, but it wasn't oppressively so.
Right. But also it focused in on what was needed for progressing the conversation, right? Like,
Well, that's one thing that Burning Wheel does extremely well. It homes in like a missile on what is important to the characters and just cuts away everything else with a machete.
Right.
And a lot of people aren't like that. Is actually it wouldn't seem like it, but it's a really different mindset for most RPGs.
Right.
Most RPGs have a lot of fluff.
Yeah, and I will say another thing about that, right? Like the Duel of the Wits and, when to engage certain things are all based off of the bits, right? And as Zen has said a couple times, right? Like there could be like semester-long master workshops about like proper use and creation of beliefs and instincts and how they interact with the rest of the system. Because especially from the GM side, right? Like everything is based off of beliefs and instincts. And, especially coming from other systems, the importance of that just like doesn't hit until like you've played it a little bit, right? Like there is nothing to the system outside of doing something with bits.
Exactly.
I mean, sure, there's, a quarter of the book for listing out skills and what the odds for skills are and stuff, but it doesn't matter unless it matters to your character through a belief or something.
I'm just looking at the hub of the wheel, intro chapter, and basically the hub of the wheel, which is to say the core, most important parts of Burning Wheel as a system, is the skill stat attribute system, like that sort of exponent system, and bits. That's it. Everything else is are extensions of those.
Well, I mean, but the really nice part about the bits is that if you fill them out, and I don't want to use the word, but correctly is really the only word I can think of right now. If you do it all correctly, you have the blueprint to a human psyche. You can get inside that character so easily if you can, if you know your beliefs, instincts, and traits.
As a way of rephrasing correct, right? Like that's sort of where the game part of this role-playing game is, right? Like there is a way in which you can phrase and tweak beliefs that'll get you Artha, which will get you all this other stuff, be in a better position in the future. And then there's a way to do that which may not be as in sync with how this game plays.
Yeah. People say you can't win an RPG, but in Burning Wheel, your character can win. And you can play as a player and make your bits so that your character later on will have a better chance to win. I also feel that Burning Wheel adds, it is based very much on top-down character telling instead of, like your character is never a representation of yourself. Because the bit system inherently, because it forces you to put different things into words, put your character's beliefs and views into words. By putting them into words, it separates those beliefs from you as a player, and it allows you to take it makes it a lot easier to take a top-down approach to how your character acts, which I think itself also helps with we lost Seth. It also helps with how do I put this? It also helps you get into the mindset of auto failing due to traits or basically bad stuff happening to your character now in order to farm fate. I think it's a very different mindset from traditional RPGs. In most RPGs, the whole goal is to win, basically. Win, maybe not win beats the game, you're finished, but win the fights, succeed at what I'm doing, etc. But Burning Wheel is more human than that, I guess, because its goal isn't either specifically to win or to fail. It's to explore.
But yeah, and in that sense, it adds to the realism of it, because if you take your average Burning Wheel character and stack it against your average Pathfinder character, the Pathfinder character has no flaws.
Yes.
Like the Pathfinder character is an idealized version of someone with a sword or a spell.
Yeah, it's at least
Burning Wheel characters are inherently flawed. They're usually not that great at what they're trying to do.
And not just narratively, mechanically as well. It's almost impossible unless you have like 6 life paths to be good at everything. Except Nico, apparently. But yeah, it's not just like I'm really good at casting spells, but I will just not use my swords. At some point, you're gonna have to. Your characters, and it's the GM's goal to challenge the character's beliefs, and that includes sometimes making not forcing them, but making them feel like they need to do things that they're bad at.
Right. And that's definitely something I want to say Burning Wheel lacks, is the chapters and the help needed for GMs to really understand what that means. Like, there's pretty much no examples for GM prep.
How much, I don't have the book, so what is there for what is the GM chapter? What does it talk about?
It's about a 4-page index all the way in the back
it's nothing.
that says, here's kind of how to do NPCs. Cheers.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's it. And so, around the internet, there's a couple chapters from like the Adventure Burner, which apparently is like a godsend for the GM or whatever.
Okay.
But is out of print right now. That has a whole chapter about how to do beliefs or how to engage beliefs properly, which is not in Burning Wheel Gold.
But it is available for download on their website.
Okay.
Yes.
Or at least a portion of it.
A portion of it. Which, once I read it, I was like, wow, this would have helped a lot.
So, I have a few questions for you, Sith. The first is, the most traditional and most passed around tip for GMs regarding NPCs is, 3 things. Does that work in Burning Wheel? Because it's, on my first impression, it seems like having even side NPCs, even important NPCs have their own bits, might detract from you portraying them.
Well, I want to say the focus is different. Every NPC will have at least one belief and one instinct. And after that, I pretty much gave cultural traits. And I just worked off of those.
Okay.
So it's basically literally 3 things.
Yeah.
It is.
But it's that, but it's not, because there's also fake life paths that say what skills they may or may not have. Then there's like a tree system it tries to work off of for having to give skills to NPCs. But the other issue is that the GM for Burning Wheel is supposed to engage and work off of the player's beliefs. So to some extent, from what I've seen, or at least from what I've read in the book, there's been nothing about how the GM is supposed to care at all about NPC bits. They're just there to color situations.
They seem like,
and so it seems weird, and I never quite figured out when to engage on those, and when to because much like a PC bit, I can choose to ignore or not ignore anything I write down for the NPC. So it becomes very odd in that in that space. There's a focus. There's a weirdness with focus, I think.
I think you're entirely right, now that I think about it. Because it's focused so much on the PC's bits, why do I don't understand quite why the NPCs have bits, except, the 3 things are very like bits in...
Well, they're discussed a little bit in the Dual Blitz, that the beliefs of the NPC should be used as inspiration for their arguments and points. But that's really the only purpose they have.
Yeah, it's a blueprint for motivations. That's really all you can pull out of it.
Going back to the pre-made stuff we did, Trouble and Hoken, the mayor and the blacksmith had 3 beliefs and 3 instincts with a buttload of traits. They were fully developed characters.
Yeah.
And on some level,
died.
that was nice to know, but was not relevant to the game because
it feels like if you were putting in the time to create those characters yourself, it wouldn't have been close to worth it in terms of the time you put in for
it. It would not have been at all.
You got out.
Well, if you look at the Monster Burner, the Monster Burner actually has a system where the GM builds up a monster by adding traits to it. And then, before the monster can appear in the game, he has to bring it before the group, and the entire group has to accept and vote on it as to if they want to allow this monster into the game. So they may have done that because they used the Monster Burner to burn up some of those NPCs, or they may have done it because they intend for you to do the same thing with NPCs.
Then you can never surprise someone.
I mean,
that's the weird part.
It's a different theory of GMing.
Yeah.
But it's also a different version of burning a wheel.
That's true.
Because Monster Burner is out of print, and it was a previous version of burning a wheel that isn't gold.
So the thing that kind of comes up for me is that, for example, watching Being Everything Else when they were and Hack Attack, when they were talking about the inspiration rule and how that works in 5th edition, using what does D&D call them? The character traits in D&D that trigger getting inspiration.
Oh, right, like the flaws and...
Yeah, it feels like that.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
It seems like there's almost a parallel for the GM anyway, to manage all these beliefs and instincts and everything, and managing pretty much the same thing in 5th edition.
I mean,
yes,
5th edition,
but that's also why I like... It's a lot more offloaded from the GM in Burning Wheel because it all goes to like that end of session questionnaire, right? Almost like Dungeon World. Like we ask the question, was this pursued? Then you get inspiration.
The NPC would also get.
Whereas in 5th Ed, right, that was completely loaded up to the DM to be like, hey, you're role playing right now. I kind of like that.
Yeah, they have to do it at that point.
Yeah, but
that's true.
But I'm more referring to like the amount of stuff that a GM has to juggle.
Exactly.
Going forward. Okay. Like in fifth edition, yes, it's extraneous because it's like this separate module of stuff, and in Burning Wheel it is the focus of the game.
Right.
But there seems to be some parallel there.
It doesn't seem like it should be the focus of the game when it's for NPCs. I feel that when I'm GMing, I will probably not use bits for NPCs unless I can almost guarantee that will come into play, like unless there's super major NPCs.
I highly recommend you have one of each.
One of each? Is that easy to come up with if you have to come up with on-the-fly NPCs?
Yes and no.
So the Kobold standard of who are they, what do they want, and what are the tools they have to get it? Does that jive in?
That jives to this because I can think of a belief, and every once in a while I think of instinct as more of like a quirk, or like
something they do with
how they shade their thinking, right? So like Yvonne, for instance, since he's dead, I can talk about him.
Yeah.
Let me see here. I can go load him up real quick.
Why am I cold? I don't think it's that cold.
So Yvonne had the belief of the findings in these ruins will make my career. I must discover all of its secrets. So that was the belief I wrote for Yvonne. And he had the instinct of always look down on the uneducated.
I think those were both played well.
Right. And so you could sort of see especially like his interactions with Ernest, right? Ernest was by no means educated. So, that's why he was kind of like that with Ernest. And then after a while, lightened up to Lord Edwin because it was after the education discussion. But it was also, he wanted his name attached to these findings. Like, that's all he cared about. And so
Yeah.
having that to work off of really helped.
Okay. Interesting.
And I want to say that took me 10 or 15 minutes to make. Though I did have prep time. I didn't have to make that up on the spot.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly it. I think that for me, I tend to introduce a lot of NPCs on the fly in my GMing style that I've done in like Stars of the Umber Dungeon World. I don't know if I'll have to do that nearly as much in this game because it's a lot slower pace.
Right.
So I will have the time to prep bits for NPCs. So
I think, as far as I'm aware, the idea is that you'll have a lot of time unless someone does a circles test. And circles tests are really the only time you're going to have to come up with something on the fly.
Okay.
Because otherwise it'll be something you have been like, oh, no, this guy's belief would be interesting if we did this. So I'll introduce this guy.
And then maybe
just ask
start with 3
questions
things that
into
you
the player's
eventually
answer.
flesh out into bits.
You guys talked at once there, I'm sorry.
I was thinking, and then maybe if it's on the fly, start with just the 3 things, etc., and then flesh them out into bits when you can.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
But it's
Also,
also not like... Go
You
for
can
it.
probably offload a lot of that onto the players and just ask questions about who they're trying to contact until you have an idea in your head of what you want to try.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. That's totally how I figured out like what life paths to sort of look at for relevant skills and stuff like that. But also, the book does make reference of like keeping track of skill advancement for NPCs or earning Artha and stuff like that. And I did not do any of that.
Wow.
So but once we get to like relationships and stuff, the idea of keeping track of that stuff might be relevant, but like, yeah, it makes mention that like at end of scenario, end of session stuff, like if an NPC pursued a belief, like they might earn a fate point if they're of a certain tier or caliber NPC.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
a lot
I
of
think it more goes to like setting relevant NPC because
Yeah.
your average blacksmith that you just happen to go to in a town that you're passing on the way to the castle, he doesn't need it.
No.
But the
Right.
big bad evil guy, yeah, he needs it.
Yeah, if he manages to accomplish a major goal, then maybe he'll get some Artha. And then he'll use that Artha. That might end up being a killing blow on a player later or something. Something crazy. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's a major sort of... did we just lose... We lost everyone.
His camera has decided that it's a Renaissance artist painter.
Another one joins. Actually,
Yeah.
Golden, your camera's fine
Really?
now, so it's just...
Yeah, I swapped cameras over. Like, this camera is shitty quality, but it always works.
I'm very tired.
I love
there,
getting in.
Yeah.
I think that just NPC management is one of the things that is clunky for this game.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the worst things this game does, which isn't really saying it's terrible, though it isn't great. It's just
It
that
does, like, Golden did mention this, but, like, it does offload a lot of that work, like, with, like, character burning, with relationships and stuff, which
That's
we really haven't gotten into. And I've been kind of
normally the relationships should be
worried
the
about trying
center
to
of
get into that.
everything
Right.
in terms of
And
NPCs.
so- Right. Or also, right, like, there's the fact of, like, even in the pre-made scenario, like, with its tips, it's like, hey, if you need someone to do X, might as well make it in a relation, right? Because, Burning Wheel plot doesn't really follow, like, realistic things. It's like, of course, it's
Yeah, it's like a
the
TV show.
guy you
almost.
failed on a circles test. Of course, it's the relation, and so, like,
Right.
It's like
hitting
a
all
medieval
those-
soap opera.
yeah, pretty much. It's a big soap opera. So,
People watch it.
it's one of those things where I think, like, once you've devised the person for X, person for Y type thing, like, after that, unless someone rolls a circles test, like, you pretty much have everyone we're going to interact with on some level.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting.
And so there's definitely not as much on the fly stuff, I think, unless someone is just like, nope, I'm going to try and find
Yeah.
person what.
And that sounds like it's going to be...
And for that point, it does make a lot of sense, and there are definite, like, tiers of NPCs that Burning Wheel talks about. Like, at the first point, you just have whatever relevant stat you need to worry about, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, are they going to interact? Okay, maybe have a belief in an instinct. Okay. After that, okay, maybe they do have more than one skill you care about, so let's figure those out. But, yeah, overall, it's not perfect. It's not great from a GM side.
I mean, there's nothing there. It's like criticizing D&D for not having a social system. There's just nothing there. You fill it in with what you already know about role-playing.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it is like if in, actually they have that in Pathfinder, where every single NPC has its own stats as if it was built like the PCs were, but it's at lower level. They have that in Pathfinder, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so little GM advice out there. Like most books, like even if they have a GM section, you probably should ignore it. I mean, it's all about as a GM
like coming
having
from like Dungeon World and Apocalypse World.
Burning Wheel is so different. Like,
yeah.
What tips, Sith, would you give to GMs watching? Like, if someone was looking to GM us or viewers, what tips do you have for them other than what we've discussed?
Put your head between your knees and kiss your ass goodbye.
I would say plan less, but that's a general advice for any system pretty much at this point. But look at interesting failures and interesting combinations of beliefs. And at that point it gets very specific, right? Like, it's very hard to prep for this.
And also, because we always forget, all of us, remember to say what will happen, like the consequences before it's rolled.
Focus on intent and task. And if it's one of those things where if at the end of the intent and task you can't think of anything interesting, just say yes. Like, just go with it. And I guess that's another one of the things, right? Like, sure, like, we're all not Pathfinder crazy awesome PCs right now, but like, I think growth in Burning Wheel is very horizontal. It's not vertical. So like, the idea of doing something crazy epic or just saying, sure, you could totally climb that wall or whatever. That's a bad example, but like the idea of there's nothing interesting to anyone's beliefs for failure here. So let's just move on. Like, and that's something I definitely struggled with for some stuff, right?
I can see what you mean, because in traditional D&D games, failure is inherently made important by the game because the goal is to win. Because the goal winning is not
right.
Because the goal isn't winning in Burning Wheel, the goal is exploration of the character's beliefs.
But also, there's less focus on the role itself and more of
the consequences of the.
Whereas here, there's more focus on the role and what that entails.
Yeah.
And if it entails nothing, there's no point to it.
Exactly.
And that's really hard to remember. But also, I guess, there's certain aspects of, like, one thing I was trying to do after a while, very similar to Powered by the Apocalypse stuff. Like, I was just trying to write down lists of quote, quote, moves I could do. In this scenario, if someone fails a physical thing, this might be something interesting that would happen. Or if someone does a social thing, this might be interesting to pursue. Like, and so the idea of, I had a whole list of things that might be interesting once someone failed a roll. Now, of course, the session I did that, no one rolled anything, but, and so.
Would this be similar to the list of GM moves from Apocalypse and Dungeon World? Because that sounds precisely like a good idea to have.
And to that end, there was a bullet point list in that beliefs chapter you could find on the Burning Wheel website that had, like, try to do this with beliefs if they don't make sense or if you can't figure out anything. And it's like, convert, it was a straight up bullet point list of possible hard moves to make to set up a scene to challenge beliefs.
Awesome. I actually
all related to one belief.
Yeah, can you put it in chat and or that link?
I can say it's in the Burning Wheel store. I believe it's entitled Concerning Beliefs.
Yeah, I linked it a while ago.
Oh, is that?
Like
that forum post?
AB Belief or something like that? It's a PDF.
No, it wasn't a forum post. It's a PDF that they
I
have
don't think
for
I saw
download
that.
in the store.
Okay.
So let me ask you guys,
that's a really good thing.
After reading that PDF, do you still think the best way to explore a belief is by opposing it?
I've read the PDF, so I'm not going to answer. What do you guys think?
I wasn't able to put in a lot of actual use from what I read. It just helped shade what I was working on.
Okay.
I mean, actually, looking at this bullet point list, because I just pulled it up, it's basically saying that opposition isn't the only way. It goes into like validation of the belief, undermining the belief, flipping the belief. There are numerous ways to engage the belief.
Okay.
I found it. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, like, that's, like, the way I set up we kind of talked about this before, but, like, the way I planned out this first scenario was, like, okay, we had something to do with artifacts. Golden's character was an archaeologist. We want to figure out how all of this stuff ties together. Let's put him in some ruins with a possible artifact and go from there. And so I focused more on that and getting the scenario set up working rather than setting up pacing for being able to say, hey, so some time passed and now we're in this scenario or this setting scene. Oh man, I have to be careful with my terms because these are Burning Wheel terms. But now there's a scene we're going to do where character X's belief and character Y's belief meshed with their off instinct will now come into focus and play, and now we can focus on this. And as far as pacing goes, I'm not sure how that would all work, but it definitely is something that would be better served for the system, where pacing is insanely fast until it's not, right? Whereas here, sometimes the pacing has just been, what are we doing today? And so I'm not sure how that works. That might be going towards your original question, Golden.
Not really, but it's okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. You guys are all being really positive about it, and I would probably be really critical of it.
Be critical.
Of beliefs in general, or
like the main thing is that so we were having this conversation, right, about the beliefs and how, as a GM, I would love to like drill into the beliefs and find all these different questions to ask. And then we came up, and I was discussing this with you guys, and you said, well, in Burning Wheel, it's all about directly opposing the beliefs, and the only question that we're really interested in is how much does this belief matter to the character. And then you guys read this, and I was trying to get an idea of...
I don't quite remember this.
Yeah. And then
I remember what he was talking about, what you were talking about, Golden.
Yeah.
And
you think it's different?
I think that is partially true. I think that what I think Burning Wheel is about is exploring a character's beliefs. Mm-hmm. And that includes how important it is to the character,
Of
but also
course.
the different facets of it, complications that probably arise with, like, in modern day, there are a lot of like beliefs and controversies, and most of them are extremely complicated and have different sort of bumps in the road on both sides. And I think that similar to that, Burning Wheel is about exploring that. However, I don't think, and it doesn't say this, which sucks because it doesn't have a GMing section, but I think Burning Wheel might best be played, instead of asking the questions to the player, ask the questions in play by presenting a situation in which, by acting through their character, the player answers that question that you would have asked.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
That's pretty much how the practical advice on challenging beliefs works here. Like it's all about taking that belief and seeing how that belief grinds up against the situation.
Yeah.
I
think opposition is probably something we've done challenging an opposition. I don't find it to be the same thing.
Well, there's also the issue of, we've mostly been talking about beliefs, right? But I know Golden had a different perspective now, or at least at some point in time, with how instincts work.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
So,
well, it was about both. I want to treat instincts and beliefs the same way, or I want to really. Yeah. I consider instincts to be,
and to me, they're very
beliefs
different
that you have more control over.
That's not an instinct to me at all.
So instincts to me are a knee-jerk reaction to outside stimulus.
Yeah.
Yes, and they're called instincts. I think very intentionally.
Yeah. But I can't remember where, but I remember somewhere saying, like, if at any point, whatever you want to write down, your character would consciously think about, even for a fraction of a second, if it does that, it is no longer an instinct, because your character thought about it. And so,
but you
it's
think
like
about it for a reason, because of something about you.
Right, but that would be a belief.
Thing is a belief.
Yeah.
Right, it would be a belief, not an instinct.
No, I mean,
it's basically sort of subconscious versus conscious. What part?
Yes.
That's.
But there's a reason why Nico always has his bow ready. We don't know what it is because we haven't written down the belief. But there's a belief there. There's a belief there to explore.
Yes,
there's a question.
But there's a. I don't. There might be a question as to why he does that, but the reason it's an instinct is that it is so ingrained in him to do that thing.
Yes.
Right. But I guess that's also.
And there is a reason for that, but I think it's a lot more broad than a belief.
There's
a belief
also,
is usually a very specific thing.
But there's also the use of instincts as macros, right? Of like, don't screw me on this, GM. I have my boat. Yeah. Like, or I have all my arms and armor. Like, it's there.
Yeah.
Let's not worry about it. And so this isn't something to pursue. This is something I just want.
It is sort of the other side of the scale that is beliefs. And on one side is beliefs, and one side is instincts. Beliefs are meant to be challenged or explored. Instincts are meant to be assumed, or at least by the GM. And the player is the one who is all about saying, actually, I'm gonna not do this belief, or this belief is gonna, or sorry, I am not going to do this instinct very, very consciously. And I'm going to, which actually I think is very interesting, because it explores, again, the definition of instinct. You as a player have to specifically speak out when your character is not doing their instinct.
And I'm almost wondering if, like, in a previous iteration of this game, in order to ignore an instinct, you had to do a will test, because that would make a lot of sense.
That would be kind of.
I don't think so, because instincts only get you in trouble when you say they do. So it doesn't make sense to have them make a will check to say it doesn't get you into trouble. Like, that seems to be
they don't always get
you,
like.
No, but what I'm saying is you're. What I'm saying
is they
don't
get you into trouble unless you say they do. Period. Right?
They don't
Right
get
now,
into trouble unless.
There's incentive to get into trouble with them.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And in that sense, as an instinct, it would be something the player would be like, yes, let's do this because I think this would be hilarious and or interesting.
And or I want Artha.
But like, think of
Right.
it this way, right? Nico pulls
But there's
his bow
also
on
other
Edwin
ones where
and gets into
Mhm.
trouble. It only got into trouble because he said it did.
No, it only got him into trouble because he acted on his instinct. Once you decide to act on your
Okay.
instinct or not, the trouble if trouble arises from you acting, you get Artha. Like
Then-
like you can't. I couldn't have pulled my bow, pointed at your face, and said, "This isn't getting me into trouble," and not and
And then
No.
have like the
Okay.
shadow,
Then there's
the
still
silhouette of a hulking armored
there's
man
still
behind you.
reasons for the game to put you in situations where it gets you into trouble. And
Oh yeah, like
exploring
except
those situations is part of the fun of the game.
it is.
That's
However,
all
I
I'm
would
really
say
saying.
it's not.
that-
It's not. There's nothing to explore there. It's more
Yeah.
of like, what happens here? Now, what do my beliefs say? It's more of it's. Or it,
I'm going
How do
to
I
take
put
this as a
this?
personal
I have a-
challenge to prove to you that there's
Well, I have
a
a thing.
lot
I think that
of stuff to explore with instincts.
instincts and beliefs can both be explored. However, instincts are explored on the player's terms
Exactly.
a lot more so. I don't think that it is feasible for the GM to specifically build things that prioritize instincts over beliefs.
Oh no, why
Um,
would you do that?
I know I don't think that's what you're saying, but I just want to be clear.
See, from my
Uh,
perspective, the more beliefs you can stick into one circumstance, the more interesting it gets. The more instincts that you can
Yeah.
trigger off an event, the more interesting it is for everybody. And
Yeah,
fun making fun as a GM is all about giving each player a personal reason to be invested in what's happening.
Yeah.
So,
I don't think instincts are personal investments to me. Beliefs are totally.
yeah.
it depends
like-
on if it's an instinct to keep you out of trouble or one you're taking deliberately to get you into trouble.
Hmm.
I mean, it's like goals, right? Like, right
I think
now,
we're
we've been
mixing up
saying
player and character.
that beliefs all need to have a goal. But if you read, like, the works
Yeah,
about how to write your beliefs, they always say the most advanced, difficult, and fun beliefs in Burning Wheel are often just a belief, and there's no real
the
way to
guiding
pursue
light
them.
belief helps you get into character, encourage you to offer a different perspective. I was just reading that as we were talking.
Yeah. So, I feel
they're
like
based
the
theology.
intent of beliefs and instincts are that they are to be explored. And they're even beyond the tools the system gives us. But that all this, it's hard not to say story. All the things that happen in the game should be based off as many beliefs as possible. And as many instincts as possible.
I agree with that, but I want to give the caveat of we are also not going to be players under a perfect Burning Wheel GM.
No.
So
How much is it to fly Luke Crane to
And-
get him with the Skype call?
right, and so while for advanced expert tier level beliefs might be a lot more interesting and philosophical to do, I don't know if any of us have the skill set yet to prepare for that in an effective manner.
And see, I
Yeah,
think
because the treatise on beliefs also goes into like you probably shouldn't start with these ideological beliefs
No,
only.
you shouldn't.
Because it makes it difficult to engage with the system and figure out how these things all work
Right.
off of one another.
And
And
also
this
the
is the
fact that
thing, like-
we're bad at the game. We've only played 12
Right.
sessions,
Yeah,
Right.
and you need to play 25 to get it at least. And yeah,
And I think that number is more 25 sessions using all of
all
Burning
of the
Wheel, not
rules.
just not just the hub and
we're
you
just
know
the hub and a couple of spokes. So that we are.
I'm hoping
newbies.
to surprise you guys because Aspects and Fate, you use them a lot like beliefs. They're not the same, but I'm hoping that really pays off.
Is there anything else we want to say about the game as a system? I think that there's one thing I would like to say, sort of based on some advice that Adam gave me as GM advice myself for how to press the story on in my own non-Burning Wheel games as a GM, would be, to try and like press the pace forward as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
As a GM, because Burning Wheel, especially when you're learning it, can be. It'll take, like, we have had multiple hour-long discussions that led to nothing.
Right.
And I think we didn't know at first it would lead to nothing. But as examples, you can spend a lot of time discussing the intricacies of the system. And that's okay probably after the game. But during the game, as the GM, or even just as the player, like,
right. Well,
say what, like, do like the 5-second rule, basically. Like,
well,
just
I guess to clarify with that, right? Like, have the sort of pre-session talk with your group, right? And be like, what are we trying to do with this game? And so, like, I've been under the assumption that part of why we're doing all of this is to figure out Burning Wheel. And so having that hour-long discussion benefits us to figure out mechanics and what may or may not be valid.
Yes.
So while it is not, it does not contribute to the session or progression in the session with the narrative or whatever we're actually doing, quote, quote, in-game, it helps us on a player level understand the mechanics better. And so that's why I've let us have these long conversations that, quote, quote, lead to nothing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I try every time. I'm like,
also,
let's just move on. We'll argue about this later.
But that also reminds me of another point about this game is that it's one of the only games that I've ever played where there are actually like two different tiers of play. There is the character level of play and the player level of play.
Well, that's top down.
Right.
And it definitely seems that you need a hell of a lot of communication on the player level as well as the character level.
Yes.
And the traditional DM behind the screen keeping his secrets doesn't necessarily benefit the system.
Yeah.
I think it really hurts it, in fact.
A follow-up to what you were saying, Zen, with like the multiple tiers thing, like on one level, Burning Wheel is all about disagreement and conflict, and so like figuring out and trying to understand something is part of the game on some level. That is what is interesting. Whereas like if there's something going on where everyone agrees and everything's totally fine, like, why are we stopping and talking about it? Like, there's nothing here.
I was explaining it to somebody else, everything boils down to one roll. But you spend as much time trying to figure out what that roll should be as you would be doing like a 10-turn combat in Dungeons and Dragons. Like, even without arguing, just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
It's going to take a long time. So it's really important that when you have that roll, that it moves everything forward.
Yeah.
Give me a sec. I'm trying to find what Adam told me. I just wanted to finish off my point on the pacing, because that was just sort of the side note. The main thing that I want to talk about was, I'm trying to find the quote directly from Adam. It turns out it was a while back that he replied, but the gist of it was the style that he GMs is to press forward in terms of what's going on in the narrative and force, and probably tell them outside of the game, we can't see that on those streams, but basically say, if you want to do something, speak up. I'm not going to ask you, I'm just going to press on. And with that in mind, if like I am not good, but I'm trying to get better at that, everyone will basically, theoretically, the pace of the game will naturally increase without all of this hesitation of, are they going to say something? Do you need to say something? Do you want to do anything? Do you want to do anything? Do you want to do anything? And then just say that, okay, then if you don't say you do anything, then the night passes, etc. That is probably more important in Burning Wheel than most other games, simply because the pace is, in general, more slow, even without the tangents. It's just
Well,
I don't sure why that is, actually.
I'd almost say the pace of the game is just more elastic. I mean, you can spend 45 minutes
totally
on what
right.
happens in 10 seconds in game, or you can say 6 months went by, guys. We're done. Let's go.
You're right. Actually. That's totally what it is. It's just way more elastic.
It's very elastic, and it could change on a dime, right? Like some offhand comment could be like, "Whoa, wait,
Pause.
we're gonna focus. Pause everything."
Record screech.
Right?
Yeah.
Whereas, like, if that didn't happen, like, poof, a year went by. Oh, okay. You guys have 4 practice tests. Moving on. Like,
it's playing The Sims on fast forward until the kitchen catches on fire. Like
Exactly, actually.
Yeah.
I haven't really played The Sims ever, and I tried pirating Sims 3 because it's like $200 to buy all the DLC, and it didn't work out well. So I couldn't play it. Nope.
Any other thoughts about Burning Wheel mechanics or play?
Other than everyone should just get over their preconceptions of it and give it a whirl. Like it's honest.
Yeah.
You know.
Or if you want to try basically play Burning Wheel but in a more traditional dungeon crawling setting, Torchbearer. Torchbearer has almost exactly the same hubs as Burning Wheel. A slightly different advancement system, slightly simpler. That's it. The skill test system is the same. You still have a belief, a goal, and an instinct. At least try that.
Well, I'd like to be critical for a minute about the system. So, the thing that really made me interested in Burning Wheel 10 years ago when I first heard about it was I was talking about breaking up the fate aspects into different categories depending on how epic it was to do them. And they said, well, you should try Burning Wheel because you have 3 types of Artha and they all track what you do. And thus far, it's felt to me like it's less about how epic your deed is and more about, did I make the roll to turn this fate into a persona? So I feel like there's not enough distinction in the types of Artha right now. Maybe that's just a thing that I was led to believe about Burning Wheel that's not there.
What I've never played Fate, so how many distinctions of the equivalent of Artha in Fate is there?
There is only one. There is one resource, Artha. You can use it as if it were Fate persona or deeds.
So it's like a story point kind of thing?
It's like a currency, so you can use a certain amount to do that, and a certain amount to do that.
You can say, I want to use this fate point to reroll, or I want to use 3 fate points to add 3 dice, or you can actually just spend a fate point and say, I want this to happen, and it does. Which is not actually in Burning Wheel. But
that's a lot more.
Is now, I was hoping that Artha would be more nuanced, and it's not as nuanced as I hoped it would be. Which is
right, but also I want to say, the economy of Artha is very different from getting fate from aspects.
I would actually say that the Artha economy works. And I would never say that about the Fate economy. For me, the Fate economy is a broken thing. But the Artha economy actually seems to work. Which is important because Burning Wheel isn't just a system, it's an engine. And that brings me to my second criticism, is that I'm often feeling in my roleplay that the best way to get narrative positioning to tell the stories, or not even the stories, but to explore the beliefs and to set up the interactions that I want to see what happens in, the best way to do that is not to engage the system. And that kind of bothers me.
Can you give me an example?
Sure, like, we were talking about the Duel of Wits, and I've said that, well, I really want to explore the consequences of what having this artifact is, and I thought we were all on board with this because, like you said, your idea was to give us an artifact as soon as possible and then see what we do with it. So we spent 6 sessions getting it into our hands to see what we do with it. Then we used the Duel of Wits mechanic, and even before we had actually had the artifact in our hands, we already decided we were going to get rid of it as soon as possible. And that was the entirety of the mechanic. And also, why we were in the Duel of Wits, right? We talked about this. We said the Duel of Wits was the exploration of that. But first off, when we were talking about consequences, I kept up concessions. I kept up bringing things up, and we were saying, well, we can't use that because we didn't talk about that in the Duel of Wits. So clearly the Duel of Wits wasn't long enough to actually explore everything about that situation. And also, it never could have been, because Nico could have just one-shot me in the first round if we had all understood the system. So the Duel of Wits in itself is a terrible way to explore something. And I don't feel like I want to engage it to explore beliefs or to set up situations that I would like to play out.
I may have misspoken a little bit when I said it was the exploration. It's conflict resolution. I mean,
right. If we just use it as pure conflict resolution, it works.
Saying that the artifact is like effectively out of our hands at this point is a little bit of jump in the gun, though, because we still have to.
They could give it back to us.
Yeah.
I don't know why they didn't give it back to us, but they could.
Sorry. To add to that, I think that we did, to a degree, explore what we would do once we have the artifact, and that was immediately start fighting about what would happen to the artifact.
Right.
And so, Duel of Wits is a conflict, and so what we did was we socially fought over it, and almost.
I'm saying I would have liked to explore more. So engaging the Duel of Wits at that time, I feel, was a mistake.
I'm not sure I understand what you mean by explore more. And then, like, you used as an example of, like, we spent 6 sessions trying to get into a block of ice. Like, that was pacing issue,
right?
From a GM not focusing on beliefs. Like,
well, we talked about that too.
I'm not sure.
We agreed that we kept picking the low-hanging beliefs just to generate Artha.
But what instead of a Duel of Wits?
Which is another thing.
What would the alternative have been?
Right. The alternative we could have used was to just have the persuade roll, and then see how each of us, what we would do, having been persuaded on a certain course of action,
and then just how
we would have tried to accomplish what we've been persuaded to do. Like,
I don't quite follow that.
No, to see where you're going with that, but not the problem with it, but would the persuade roll have been as binding as the Duel of Wits?
No, and this shouldn't have been. That's my
question.
Well,
why not?
It wouldn't have had narrative power.
If the roll is successful, you have been persuaded. Period.
Right. I think the persuade roll is actually more binding than the Duel of Wits. Duel of Wits is you lose an argument. Persuade is your mind has changed. I think that the Duel of Wits means you have verbally agreed to something. It doesn't mean you're forced to do it. But I think a persuade roll means a persuade roll is significant. A persuade roll is you have agreed to hand something over, or If the persuade roll was made instead and he succeeded, and knowing your will and his persuade skill, he probably would have succeeded.
I mean, if that's true,
If his
then
intent
it's
was
again
to
the mechanics of Burning Wheel are getting in the way of exploring the situation more.
The thing about a Duel of Wits and a persuade roll is
I
that
think this is also
regarding
an issue.
one player changing the mind of another character and it's purposefully, and according to the system, taking agency away from that character's player,
right?
For temporarily.
I think this also goes back to something Primarch was saying, and that's like there's a clear distinction between character and player. And for instance, like with a will of 2, Edwin is very persuadable.
Yes.
He will believe anything, pretty much. Whereas you, Golden, are not. And so the idea of wanting to explore something like that interests you, but the character you have may not be the best character to explore that at this point. Does that make sense? I don't know if someone wants to rephrase it a little bit.
That makes sense, but at the same time, I think that you guys are overstating. Like, the characters in Burning Wheel are still just there as tools for us to interact with the setting. Like, they'll never...
Think that's true.
I don't agree with that, but I don't know how to counter that.
Right.
Well, it's just sort of an ideology.
Even if that is the case, then the character with the will of 2 is kind of a dull tool to explore that specific scenario.
Right. As I said, I have no problems with the artifact going to the organization, but I feel like there's nothing to explore now.
Your will is gray, isn't it?
No, it's just not gray.
It's not gray?
My perception is gray.
Your perception is gray, okay. Well, even if it goes, like, it's not like we're never going to see it again. I'm sure that
it'll probably be 3 by the end of the session. Tonight.
Your concern is that it will be boring because it will go to the organization. We'll never see it again. However, whoever is GMing will want to make things interesting for us. That's the main goal. Everything else is secondary to that.
Right.
Let's back that up one step. The purpose of the GM is to challenge the beliefs. Right. So if the artifact is still inside the beliefs, guess where the artifact is? It's still relevant.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And so, and I actually think, I want to go back to my original point about the Duel of Wits being less binding than Persuade. In Persuade, you were persuaded, as in you, in your mind, agreed.
The intent comes to pass, right?
And the intent, I assume, for Zen would have been persuade him to give me the artifact.
I think the no mind control rules still should apply to skill rolls, but I'll have to investigate that.
Not Burning Wheel.
Persuade is something of convincing you to do something almost to the level of it was your own idea, like Inception level.
I really think you're reading into Persuade.
Golden, you can choose you both have to agree for the roll to happen. So it's not like the roll is not forced upon you. You both agree
the thing is, I would simply not use the system. I'd be like, I'm not going to interact with the system. In this case, it's not an interesting result for me. And I think that's the problem.
With that though, right? That's what happens with our hour-long conversations, though, right? Like at the end of it, we realize we don't want to utilize that part of the system,
right?
And so it doesn't happen.
Yeah,
and that's so therefore it's not something to pursue.
However, if I can finish, the Duel of Wits is not mind control. You lost the argument. This doesn't mean that you were persuaded. Your mind is still your own.
Exactly.
He did not change your belief. And now, you have the artifact. You said you were going to give it to the organization, but the ball's in your court.
Well, that's the thing, is that you guys...
That's not technically true.
You guys were saying the ball is not in my court, that I had to...
Yeah,
with narrative power, I had to do
the statement of purpose does come to pass for the winner.
So you see,
and
it happens, period. Okay. And more than that, it seems that we're reading it as it happens in the way that the winner intended. which I don't see.
What?
But if
well,
it's
maybe
true,
the statement
then,
of purpose should have been revised from "he
Yeah.
will take it" to "he says he will take it." Do you feel that might have
No.
been the mistake?
I don't think that would do it.
No.
Okay.
So it
Yes,
simply is don't
you-
engage
so
the
what-
duel of wits unless you want the statement of purpose to be true.
Right. Well,
Unless
that
you're
goes back to the
interested
whole
in both. Basically.
beginning, the whole kit and caboodle of Burning Wheel. Intent and task. You guys had an extended test where Nico's intent became true. You know,
Okay.
like, while it's a duel of wits, it still happens. And so the intent of Artifact going to the organization is going to happen. But yes, there are some things around that can happen, but that in itself
It is sacred.
happening. It is sacred now, yes.
Right.
Okay. So I think, that's a big deal. That's what Burning Wheel differs from in most other RPGs. Because of the whole top-down player thing, it is okay with removing agency, with basically temporarily removing control.
I'm just saying I'm not going to engage that system until I'm done exploring the situation. The duel of wits is not an exploration.
I don't quite know what that means. I don't quite know what that means.
What examples would you give us, Golden, for exploring the situation? Because I'm sort of with Sith's boat. How would you want to explore the situation, or how do you? Because we could still do it.
We could have, for example, agreed to get the artifact out of the mountains and to somewhere safety. Then we could have explored what do we want to give what do we want to do with the artifact, who do we want to give it to, what are the qualifications, what are the advantages of giving it to the organization, as opposed to doing other things with it. And we do not explore any of those.
You could still
I don't really think that would have ever happened, because you considered Nico an employee. Like, you would not have had a on-level conversation with them.
Oh, no.
You would have just taken it on some level.
What was I going to say? You can still have these conversations
it
with
was
Nico.
My intent as a player to
because I would like
to, so we would
I like to change my thing. Nico's intent is sacred to everyone but him. If he wants to withdraw that and change his mind, like if we're on the journey, he decides, I don't feel like taking it to the thing.
Look, it's over.
Because he's the.
As a player, I want to explore the organization now. It's over.
Okay, cool.
In the future, I'm going to keep in mind what the dual wit system does, and I feel that I can only engage it when I'm done exploring the situation, and we want to come to a resolution so we can move on to the next situation.
Yeah,
and I think that is a problem
is the
with the
exact
dual wit system.
Opposite of what dual wits is for.
I know. I think we're doing something wrong.
Golden.
I think we're doing something wrong with the dual wits because I have no intention of engaging it.
Well, dual wits is super fun.
I think it's super fun. I think that there's either something wrong with our interpretation or there's something wrong with the system. I don't know which one it is. I don't feel like my feelings are wrong in this matter. Like, I want to explore it more.
You are right, Golden, in that the dual of wits system is very final in and of itself. There is no uncertainty in what will happen.
You use dual of wits for a decision point, for a counterpoint of something is changing with the dual of wits.
Yes.
If something would not change with the dual of wits, do not engage dual of wits. And so the idea of being done with something and then doing a duel of wits is...
Well...
Think of it like you're playing...
I don't understand that.
I think what he means is the duel of wits is the last thing. It's like when everything comes to a head. We've explored all these issues. There is a fundamental disagreement that has not been resolved, but it's the last thing to do, so let's duel of wits it out because it's important to all of our characters.
Right.
Once that's been resolved...
It still seems insanely contrived to me for doing that.
Well, I mean,
there's another thing
I guess that's my
insanely contrived.
I have another question, actually.
No, I full-heartedly disagree with that statement completely.
I don't know. It depends on your meaning of contrived. But we are all just playing make-believe.
Right.
Anyways, I have a question. Sith, just regarding the Duel of Wits system, you stated that if you lose the Duel of Wits, if you win the Duel of Wits, then your intent, your statement of purpose will come to pass. Is that right?
Yes.
However, the loser is able to just immediately draw their sword and fight you. What if they kill you?
If the losing party draws their sword to kill, they immediately forfeit their intent. The win they get is they kill the dude.
Yeah.
But it still goes to pass.
How? If for example...
Well, generally, like the one we had is not a good example, but generally, there's an audience to a Duel of Wits that you're trying to convince. They're who you're trying to change or convince.
That's a huge difference. Okay.
And so that's where it would have been in play. Whereas
it also says that if you
audience.
actually kill him, you are vindicated in their eyes. It's if you fail to kill him, that you are then forced to go along with the statement of purpose.
Okay.
And some other shit.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
in fact, there's actually an example of ignoring the resolve the Duel of Wits completely. I just don't want to do that because I think it would set a bad precedent and not be fun.
Interesting. I'm so curious. Because, if you draw your sword right after Duel of Wits, why can't he do something so much drawing his sword way after Duel of Wits is finished?
Exactly. There's nothing that says you can, though. But there's also nothing that says you can't.
Yeah, I think Murder Most Foul is still on the table until the statement of purpose has been fulfilled.
Till it has been fulfilled?
Right. I guess that's another point to make that's very different from other systems, is that burning wheel rolls are usually not immediate.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, their effects can take, a very elastic amount of time to come to pass.
I think that's going to end up being one of our many frequently used word by us.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But
it's not something that we need to resolve right now. It's just a criticism. I can't tell if my criticisms of us using the system improperly because we're still learning it, or if because the system itself does not do what I'm hoping it will.
But
I feel like the Duel of Wits system is not for exploration. The other thing is that
I think it is.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The other thing is
it's for exploration of disagreements.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, basically.
Well, it doesn't get all the stuff on the table to argue about.
In conflict.
Before you have an argument, you have to have all the things on the table that you're going to argue about. The Duel of Wits is not the time to start bringing up new arguments. The Duel of Wits is the time to pick which arguments you think are most important.
Well, that being said, in the Duel of Wits we had, there was one point made, and everything was obfuscate and
it was a
feint
huge problem.
And everything. So nothing was about bringing up arguments that were actually on hand. That isn't what the two characters do.
But there would have never been time to do it.
So that's why there
anyhow.
wasn't discussed.
I think I might see the thing. I'm reading through the Duel of Wits thing now. Because this is very audience based. I think that somehow Nico has managed, let's see. Where are we here?
But is the audience the actual physical audience who are a bunch of peasants and don't matter? Or is it us, the players?
I think it might be us, the players.
Indeed.
Reducing your opponent's argument to 0 dice while maintaining dice in your body of argument indicates you've won the Duel of Wits. The terms of winning the character set forth at the outside of the duel must now be abided by and acted on by all parties involved. The winning character has won this test, and like any other test running wheel, his intent is made manifest. But remember, it is not mind control, it is an agreement between two people. These mechanics often refer to audience reaction. This is the true benefit of winning. Rarely is the opponent convinced of the merits of the argument, but all those around him now see the advantages clearly displayed against the fallacy of the loser's assumptions.
Right.
So I
So
think that even
Ernest
your not
would
only you,
understand.
Golden, but I think your character, Lord Edwin, probably feels also forced to do this.
Oh,
in a
absolutely.
different, like, pressured.
Yeah.
I just my complaints on the Reddit thread were about I have nothing to work on from the argument to understand why my character would be doing this. And
Yes.
now those have been resolved, I'm fine with going forward. But
Wait, what?
I have bigger issues with the when to use the dual wit systems.
Who has lost the duel of wits must immediately make a steal test. If his argument was reduced below 0, those dice are added to the hesitation obstacle. While the loser hesitates, the victor is free to gloat, run through him, or offer a verbal coup de grace. Free to gloat. Free to gloat, run him through, or offer a verbal coup de grace.
So if you don't invoke Murder Most Foul before you lose the argument, you're going to die.
They will kill you. They can kill you, but they're in front of an audience themselves, and they don't.
There's so much killing in Burning Wheel.
Yes. A character who's that audience decides. No, that's an optional rule. It's an alternate rule. Is someone talking?
Yeah. No, I was going to say it's a medieval fantasy RPG. There's killing in the genre. Like that's what it does. Sword spells and
yeah.
So let me just say my last issue, and that is that I feel like the roles are supposed to encourage you to have a combination of heroic successes and terrible failures. But from what I've seen so far, all of my heroic successes are in the same dice pool, and all of my heroic failures are in the same dice pool. And I feel like that shouldn't be what happens. Anyway, that's the last thing I have to say.
I don't think that's the emphasis. I don't think the emphasis is on roles at all. I think it's of pursuance of beliefs.
Well, it is about roles, because it's not just about beliefs, it's also about creating the theme of a medieval role-playing world.
And
Luke Crane himself has had interviews about that.
Yeah. My last thing about Duel of Wits, I'm reading through more of it. I'm not sure we should have used Duel of Wits at all, honestly. All of the examples are about convincing, like, neither people. Right now, the Duel of Wits that we used was about two people trying to basically convince each other and come to an agreement.
Oh, you can use it for that too. There's multiple uses.
However, Duel of Wits apparently is all of persuading.
I've had a conversation with Zen about this.
Oh, okay.
Just to sort of make sure, like, intent and all failing stuff continues. And I don't want to put words in Zen's mouth, but so he could feel free to say you're full of shit, Sith. But to us,
anyway.
Okay. But it seemed like the Duel of Wits we did was almost a exact mirror or copy of the example Duel of Wits in The Sword, which is between two people, two PCs in a party, figuring out where an artifact should go.
But they had an audience. The rest of the PCs, didn't they?
Well,
yes, that would actually matter because then
they had as much of an audience as was present in our Duel of Wits.
I'm not sure if that's true.
Because your character was there.
He would, yes, and he is not one to be persuaded by mere talking. He will follow Lord Edwin, and the other guys won't get involved.
But according to the rules of the Duel of Wits, Ernest is persuaded.
Yeah. Ernest is persuaded. Yeah,
I am persuaded.
So is Kirill, and the others who don't matter as much.
Okay, I might make a belief about that next.
Edwin is not persuaded. He begrudgingly is where he's at.
So this is
Ernest was a party to the Duel of Wits because he helped. Doesn't that change?
Yeah, I did help.
Doesn't that remove him from the audience?
No.
It does not. You two are the audience. I'm simply like a guy making a snide remark. Like that's how much. Like some.
Really.
That's to the. I'm still part of the audience. I
I'm
think
not
that
sure about that.
I may have been wrongfully imagining how this went. It seems like it was less you two arguing with each other and more you two convincing the rest of us which of your ideas was better.
Exactly. That's what the Duel of Wits is
for. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
then I was wrong, like imagining it wrong. And so,
but there's also a narrative
maybe
power that goes up above and beyond the simple audience that we had, and that's what makes everything weird.
Yeah, if there isn't any audience, like if it's just two people alone in a room, I don't think Duel of It should ever be done, even if
No, that's when you rely on your social skills, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, well then I'm cool, and I sort of get then. If Ernest has been convinced, and I'll write a new belief for him, then that would mean that, and like, probably it's possible that Lord Edwin saw Ernest nodding with a couple of Nico's points, and then...
Well, what were Nico's points? Do you remember?
No, I don't remember.
His points were Edwin is physically and mentally incompetent, and that war amongst the islands is not a problem.
I don't think he said it was
that wasn't the point. Yeah, I don't think that was what.
Okay, tell me what
Nico
your point was. What was your point, Nico?
I think your point was the organization was for the greater good.
Oh yeah, it was for the greater good, but not why. You didn't say why it was. What was the point? What was the argument there? See,
one might be more skilled than the other,
by
but
a statement?
lack presence. I've never been educated, dude. Ernest has never been educated.
Okay.
Well, one thing or another, he thinks loyal to Lord Edwin, but he thinks that Nico is right. So that's.
I'm just saying, what is it? What is exactly is he right about? Make sure to figure that out.
I'll figure out which of my beliefs most resonate with Ernest when I write my belief.
I don't think it goes into that depth. It's just about the statement of argument.
That's true. Which is
through whatever Nico said. Ernest now thinks that the artifact going to the organization is a good idea.
Oh, definitely.
And that's it.
Yeah. Okay. It's probably for him the greater good thing, but I don't know. I might think of something else.
Well,
okay.
Why are you
now
convinced?
Now that Duel of Wits, I think, unless you guys have anything else to say about it, has been resolved, and by that I mean I've cleared up my misunderstandings of it. Then I think...
Yeah, were there any other critiques or comments about Burning Wheel or the mechanics therein?
I just had those two.
Okay.
I'm really hoping we play more about Burning Wheel and we learn more and we experiment with rulings we know are wrong.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
Did we want to take a few moments to sort of switch gears over to Zed?
Yes.
And figure out if there would be any differences with that? Do we want to take a quick break with that?
Before we do that? To remove the Flame Lord symbol from Sith Master, who has served us faithfully.
Oh, Fire Lord Sith Master is... Okay. I really should watch the stream.
We must do the ceremony. Dun, dun, dun. Congratulations on trophy! I can't spin it because I'm not using OBS
Fire
Monkey.
Lord.
But you are not a Fire Lord.
Yay.
We'll be right back.
I feel the power coursing through my veins.